I think we all need piles of stones in our life to remind us of who God is and how sovereign he is. And we may not know the answer to what's out of control, but we know the one who ultimately is in control. And our hearts need reminded of that.
Hey, welcome back to another week of Behind and Beyond. I'm Allison, and this week I get to sit down with Pastor Dave as we discuss the sermon from this past weekend. Dave, welcome back.
Good to be here.
It's been a while.
Been a minute. Yeah.
Fun to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, we've had some guest speakers and some schedule issues on the weekend. So yeah, finally
Missed ya.
I preached again and I missed it. For sure.
Yeah. It's Kids Gig Week.
It is Kids Gig.
We're kicking off Kids Gig at Swickley
We
this
are in
week.
Swickley.
Yeah.
So someone once asked me, they're like, so where do you film these videos? We have a studio set up in the upper level of Swickley Valley.
Top secret.
It is top secret. It's coded to get in. You have your gig shirt on.
I do, yeah.
That is pink salmon something?
Yeah, that means I'm a volunteer.
Is there a persimmon or something like that? Is that a color?
Sure. Yes,
Maybe
it's
not.
a little more orangey, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said the word wrong.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
That I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
at Kids
What
Gig?
is that one? Because the shirts have a color code.
They do.
System.
It just means you're an adult volunteer. If you've got the
So that's all adult volunteers are the.
unless tie-dye is your campus staff.
That's right.
And then yellow.
So
Butter
tie-dye
yellow
means-
is sensory experience volunteer.
Okay. And I know the black ones are production.
Black is production.
I wear the black one when I'm at Kids Gig.
just because it's cooler.
Well, because the tie-dyed one.
don't want the pink one?
Well, people came up to me and they'd had questions.
Yeah.
I have zero answers when it comes to Kids Gig. I used to know them when I was
Sure.
the family pastor.
Yes.
But now I'm like, I don't know. So they were like, do you want a tie-dye shirt? I said, not at all.
I have a collection. I have like probably a whole drawer dedicated to my
yes.
tie-dye shirts.
I have some with sleeves cut off for painting and like working out because over the years they get a little bit, you wear them a lot with the multiple gigs. So yeah,
So-
gig has started.
You hinted at the fact that right there that you, or just said actually exactly that you were the family pastor for
was.
a season here.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is one of your favorite gig memories, or what is one of the craziest things you've done in the name of gig over the years?
So like, I'm not a big crazy guy.
Yeah, you don't like the silly stuff.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't. I do the straight character, like the narrator, that kind of a thing. My old church, they did some sketches and they asked me to play something funny, and I was like, no. They're like, well, we need you, and I hadn't been on stage yet. I was new, and I was like, yeah, not worth it to me. They wanted me to put a leather coat on and ride in on a like a scooter.
That sounds fun. No?
Sure. Maybe that's you. That is not, I cannot commit to that. I'm not, I'm just not good at that. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. So I don't have a lot of those things.
But you're the prop guy. You're
I
prop Dave.
use props for illustrations
Yeah.
to help people understand. I mean, my favorite gig memory, I received a card. We used to have kids, if they responded to the gospel, I got the card back of one of my own children who said yes to Jesus at an early age. And so for me, Kids Gig is like a cherishing moment. And yeah, that's probably my favorite. I think one time I had to jump in, the power burped. There was a storm, whatever, and a bounce house started coming down.
Oh.
I ran in and got kids out and
Yes.
held it up, and because those things deflate.
I've had bounce house injuries at gigs.
It's scary.
Yes, it's intense.
Yeah. It's fun, but you just got to pay attention, right? Well, it was deflating on kids, and I had to jump in and like pull kids out of a deflating bounce house.
Yeah.
That's my closest memory to running into a burning building or something like that at Kids Gig.
I should probably clarify. I myself have had the bounce house injuries, not the kids.
You have gotten injured.
I just mean like, because even trying to pack them up at the end of the day, when you're like rolling them up and
so
trying to load them into a car or whatever.
That's the worst. I've done that because you just do it. You do all things. They're heavy and they smell really.
Yes, they do.
They smell awful. It's like hockey equipment for any hockey parents out there. Anyways, yeah. But it's fun. Like it's a blast.
Brad Beggs just jumped. Did you yesterday? He on stage jumped on a trampoline into a pool of water on the stage.
Our legal team does not want to know any of this stuff, right? Brad is like the ultimate warrior of Kids Gig.
This is his best week.
He's
this
the
is
fun
his
zone,
favorite,
man. He's a blast.
For sure.
He was out front greeting people. I was out there with him, and I mean, I had 2 cups of coffee into it. I'm not that level.
It's Brad,
man. He's so enthusiastic and it's contagious.
Yeah.
And
It's really fun.
Love them. Yeah.
So if you are at another campus and you're listening, it might not be too late to sign your kids up. So
That's right.
Kids Gig
Sign
registrations are still open.
And I even think, like, if you have clearances and you want to be involved in this, it is an amazing week. I mean, an amazing week. What I love about Kids Gig is it's about the kids, but my kids as leaders, student leaders, they've been impacted.
Sure.
And they have been stretched, and they start to see, like, they can lead.
Yeah.
They can carry the gospel.
Yeah.
They can be a part of this. Gino just went to Walmart to buy a little like foam football to throw around with his kids because he thinks that's how I can get them connected with me. I can engage with them. He went and spent his own money
that's awesome.
and did that. He bought little bandanas for his group next week.
Really cool.
He's into it. So
Gig is easily one of my favorite weeks
it's
of
a blast.
Northway. Yeah, I love it so much.
So fun fact, I was telling a couple people this yesterday. I mentioned I was a Family Matters pastor when I first started at Northway. When I got to Northway, and Gig has had iterations, beautiful iterations, but when I got here, my first summer, I did not know what was going on.
Sure, yeah.
And I had a thought of, like, we'll probably land this plane, because VBS is like old school church. Two things.
You thought you'd be done with
I did. I did.
Wow.
Like arrogant, right?
Yes.
And like,
okay.
So then I saw it for the first week. Darren Bowers, Pastor Darren goes, just wait and see it. Just wait and see it. I saw it and I'm like, oh, we're doing this thing.
Yeah.
We are continuing this thing. But the one thing I did see that was changed, Gig used to be from 9 to 2:30. That was a long day. Like, kids used to bring their lunches. Adults, like kids at 1 o'clock were exhausted.
Yeah.
They were done. Adults at like 12 o'clock were done. And we were having trouble getting volunteers who could be there all day and maintain it for 5 days. So that was one of the things I did say, hey, how about if we just shorten our day? And it seemed to be a good thing. So it's now 9 to 12. So that's one of my early memories of family pastor at Gig. Yeah, it's
so fun.
Arrogance. But I'm glad it's still here.
Yes, and it's different than,
Thrilled.
I think when I came on staff too, the first gig I did, I couldn't even have expected how intense and how fun,
It's
how high energy and how much fun. It was very different than my small rural church experience.
It's different than the VBS I grew up experiencing. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's jump into talking about the sermon.
We're not going to talk about food?
Oh, yes.
I thought you had something fun to mention.
I do, yes. Thank you to all our listeners out there, because we have just reached, Amanda had
epic status.
Texted us that we had reached number 30-something in the foodie.
I think 37.
30, maybe 32?
32.
Even? I don't know.
Even better.
Something.
We're climbing.
In Foodie Pursuit podcast. Which might have been her way of saying, like, chill it out on all the candy talk. I don't know. But
no, listen, sometimes it just happens. Like, and here we are. We are known for not what we thought we would be, but we're here.
We are a church that feeds people, right?
The gospel
so, there you
is
go.
food for the soul. Yeah, last night Brooke made, it was like deconstructed egg rolls.
Oh.
Chicken egg roll.
Yeah.
This is the second time we had it. Fan favorites in our household.
That's a
absolutely
fun idea.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's soup. It's actually
how's it deconstructed?
Really healthy.
You're
gonna need to call Brooke.
Like the crispy outside.
So there was no crispy outside. So so there's nothing fried in it. So all the cabbage, the spices.
Fried. That's the best part.
I don't love that part.
Yeah.
I like the insides.
Really?
Actually.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little heavy for me, but and I put a little like yum sauce on it, a little hot sauce, and some sesame seeds on top to like decorate it. It's really good.
Nice.
Foodie. There we did it.
Foodie and healthy. Yeah. That sounds great.
It was great.
Okay. So the sermon this weekend, kind of my first question always is, so as you're preparing for the sermon, how did you kind of arrive to the sermon that you did? And control is such a giant,
massive.
And kind of really all of the trials we've been talking through have been massive. And every teacher's had to really kind of pick one lane within that giant topic. Probably all of them could be their own series in a way, right?
Absolutely. So, we could do 8 weeks on the different forms of control. Yeah. How to give up control. I'll probably share it in just a few moments. Someone did ask me a really good question after church we can talk about. But how did I get to where I was? You always have to focus in on a lane. If you talk about it too generally, you may have covered a wide swath of territory, but I don't know how helpful you are. So 2 things happened. I pray. I really do. I'm not, this isn't like, hey, it's VBS week, so say the God answer.
Yeah.
I really do pray. And I felt like the Lord directed me to Joseph. And then the things I saw in Joseph was, okay, here's where I feel like the Lord is leading me to talk about those heart postures when life is out of control. And then the second thing is I have a tendency to want to grab control. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to speak to, I mentioned kids a lot because that's an area of my life that, gosh, you love them. And the hard thing about control, and I probably need to talk about this, is sometimes we do it for like really noble, righteous reasons with great intents. But that's not always the best thing for our kids or our careers or those relationships that are not functioning the way they need to be right now. So I had two areas. It was Joseph, and then it was my own sort of, not Jesus take the wheel, but hey, how about I drive? Mm-hmm. So that was like what focused me in on the lane and just trying to understand, like, what is a better posture? What is a God honoring? What is a supernatural posture? Yeah. And then that's what I saw in Joseph, and then of course in Jesus. So, yeah.
And so then I guess that's part two of the question. Were there other things you wish you could have talked about? Or maybe even if you would bring up that question that you were asked.
Yeah. So somebody came up and asked me, they were like, okay, I get the surrender thing. And they said, but does that mean we just don't do anything then? Mm-hmm. And I said, no, it doesn't mean that. That would have been like part two. That would be a whole, how do you stay active while surrendering? Yeah. That's like a whole sermon to me. And so here's what I said to the person. And I'm not going to share too much about the situation, but it was a really good application point. It did have to do with children. So how do I walk in a surrendered posture, but still parent actively with my kids? The question I asked this person was, as much as you're trying to do to parent your kids, are you equally so or even more so praying for your kids? And that's when it often gets quiet, because I think there is great depth to surrendering to God in prayer, the things that we are tempted to control. Mm-hmm. And I would just ask everyone this question. So if I was to preach about this, I would talk about, what does that ratio look like? How is surrender a moment or a lifestyle? Is it a posture? So constantly I am surrendering my 20-year-old kid to the Lord, but as I surrender in prayer, it's, Holy Spirit, show me what to say. Show me what to do so that I'm not controlling, but I'm reflecting you. Yeah. And that's where that Proverbs 3 passage really was, it was illuminated. It was in a time of prayer. Mm-hmm. How do I talk to my son? Mm-hmm. I know he's coming home this summer, and what do I do? So it doesn't mean we are passive. It doesn't mean we're inactive. It doesn't mean we are saying like, well, for anything to happen, God's going to have to move. I think we walk with God. We stay in step with the Spirit. That's that posture of surrender, and we are directed and guided by the Holy Spirit. And we get checked on, hey, you are lecturing your kids in a way that's actually controlling them. Yeah. You're actually trying to heal a wound of yours by preventing them from ever experiencing something. And so that's what I mean by surrender. If I had more time, I would probably want to breathe into that more, or expand that, because I thought it was a great question.
Yeah. Actually, I had a similar...
I checked my retirement portfolio.
Yes. Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. It's like, what's the difference between trying to control something?
If there is deep bass coming through right now, Kids Gig is going on right now.
I don't know if people can hear it.
It felt like the Death Star from Star Wars was landing on this building right now. If that comes through or not.
I hope they can hear it.
Anyways, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Allison. I was just like, listeners might be nervous for us. We're okay.
I feel like it is just, I don't even hear it anymore. There's so much like Kids Gig noise behind us.
Bones were rattling. I'm getting old. Like the bass is getting to me. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, I think that is a really interesting question that you were asked, because I think that is the tension between, and something you kind of have to just, I think, like evaluate in yourself. Am I trying to control something, or am I just acting responsibly? Yeah. And I think you can think about that in a lot of different areas, like in parenting, for sure. Of course, like, is this, I'm being responsible with my kid, or no, I'm trying to control it. Yeah. I think as a leader or a boss in an organization or work, Am I trying to control? Or
I have that with our church.
Yeah, of course, sure, yeah.
And there's two thoughts that I think of. There's a phrase I learned a long time ago, and it reframes my mind as a pastor, as a parent, as a husband. Sometimes we assume we are responsible for everything in someone else's life. But I really believe in when you have infants, you are responsible for feeding them.
Sure, yes.
But when they grow and they are starting to mature, I'm responsible to Nico, Gino, Mila, Brooke, our dog Louie, right? Responsible for them is when I start to become God to them, where it is now my job to control I can direct my kids to a passage of scripture. I can try and model that. I can be open and talk to them about my missteps and my falls and my shortcomings. But at the end of the day, they still have to go and read that passage of scripture and bring it into prayer. I can't do it for them.
Yeah.
So 2 and 4 it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm responsible to our church, but not for the outcomes. Like I think I mentioned, in my heart, I want to see revival, whatever that looks like. I think God's going to do it in a fresh way. Like I don't think it's going to necessarily be a tent revival. I don't know. Whatever. Like relationships restored, hope being brought back into our world with the church at the forefront of that. I can't force it to happen. It's not my timeline. But I'm responsible to it by praying, by anticipating, by leading in a way. So that's the first thing. I think we should check and look, are we stepping into that responsible for everything? So here's an example of that. Just parenting, right? My son's oil needed to be changed in his car. I almost jumped in his car and just went and did it. And then it was just like, no, he has to learn how to do this. Like I can't, he's 20 years old now, right? So in 2 years, he could be living in a city somewhere else and like, hey dad, there's a light on in my car. Could you fly to San Antonio and get the oil? Like,
no, I'm laughing
because
I still call my dad. I'm still like, hey dad, what?
Google instant oil change near you. So there's like a 2 and a 4 thing. And then the second piece is here's what we really have to monitor. The level of worry about that thing.
Yeah.
Worry is fear. Worry is like concern that is disordered. And so we have to bring that back into check. And we really have to say, am I entrusting our kids and our finance? So I check the stock market, but when I begin to worry about the stock market, and here's the thing, those things can quickly become idols. Good things can become idols, and our kids can be an idol.
Sure.
Right? Our career can be an idol. Our performance can be an idol. The stock market or finance, anything can be an idol. Any subtle, sneaky things. So those would be 2 things I would say as we walk in a posture of surrender. We stay active and responsible to those things. It would be irresponsible of me to never check my retirement stuff because something might need to change, right? But when I feel responsible for all of that, that's when worry starts to creep in.
Yeah.
So that's the second sermon that I would have preached on the heels of this one. So
yeah, I think the fear thing, that is kind of the quick check in my spirit in parenting or in leadership, where I think, am I doing this out of a place of anxiety or fear?
It's good.
And if so, it's probably controlling behavior. Like I'm probably trying to control my child because of the anxiety I'm feeling about the situation.
That's right.
If I'm doing it out of a place of love and then usually and trust in the Lord, then usually I can much more operate in a place of like just guiding or shepherding my kid rather than trying to control them. And it's such a fine line though, right? Because you can just slip in between the two very quickly, I think.
My son had his wisdom teeth out yesterday and early in the morning. It was great though. You have to like fast for that.
Yeah.
Anyways, he had the 7:30 appointment, which made fasting easier. I said, I'm 100% accurate when I fast through the night.
Yeah.
Because I'm sleeping, right? You're never hungry. I'm not even tempted, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, early in the day, he took a nap, whatever. He was kind of bored, like 5 o'clock rolled around. And I was like, you need to lay down. You need to rest. And I even gave him like a mini lecture. Hey, your attention to your recovery is going to predict how the rest of this week goes. But he was like, hey, I think I'm going to go to Walmart. I need to get out. I need to go do something. And And I was like, are you allowed to drive with your medicine? Everything in me wanted to say, no, go lay down. He needed to go. I needed to let him go. That's like a silly example. And of course, he came home with those supplies for Kids Gig. Of course, like me trying to say, no, don't go. He was going to do something like for the kingdom, Yeah. So, but that's like an example where I just needed to if we slow down and learn what fear sounds like, we can also start to hear the Holy Spirit saying, let him go. So I backed off. I sensed like as parents, we're stewards. Yeah. We're not owners.
I going in a totally
it all
different
comes
direction.
Back to parenting, doesn't it?
It really does. I think
yes,
but and leadership within work. So if you're not like a parent, I think there's plenty of places where we can operate out of anxiety or fear or trying to control things.
Yeah, our health.
Yeah,
some of us might be exercising to a point that it's fear-based, not health-based.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of things that can be good that can slip into fear instead of in control. Yeah. I got a question after the sermon as well to ask you on the podcast, which is going kind of a different direction, but I thought was a really good question. This person was asking about so again, acknowledging there's kind of like, it's a giant topic. You kind of have to pick a lane. And I saw even after service and prayer time with people that it was really impactful to people in our community.
Yeah.
And also I think there was a question of, when I think about control, there's this kind of micro control, like me wanting to control my life. But maybe that doesn't super resonate with me. I don't necessarily think I'm a controlling person, or that's like a struggle of mine. I don't feel like I have to be right or like grasp for things.
Great.
I'm speaking for this other person.
Yeah, sure. I hear you.
I have plenty of control issues myself.
I'm following you.
And
I was like, you're lying. I'm just kidding.
So, but at a macro level, there is this sense of just the world is out of control. And globally, we are all experiencing this sense of out of controlness. Like you can't even keep up with the news headlines. There's one thing to fear, and then the next thing to fear comes. And it feels like even before you can wrap your head around what you think about something, another thing is coming at you and is moving so fast. And it can create a lot of anxiety about so the question was, how do I stay rooted in the gospel when it feels like everything else around me is just completely out of control? Yeah. And how do I live when there's real, this person was concerned about a student visa. How do I live when I'm not sure what is in my future?
That's right. So that's really, really a challenging situation. And I want to empathize with that, because that sort of unknown, it sounds a lot like Joseph. There's so much out of control at a macro level. We lived through COVID and the 2020, 21, 22, when like everything was so out of control. And I remember there was a point where so follow me on this. I think I'll connect some dots here. There was a point where there was so much happening in our world, and there were decisions that I was making, like, so you need to make a statement about this.
Yeah.
And at first I was trying to figure out, like, so where do I stand on this issue? How do I respond to that issue? And then the issue would change. Before you even felt like you knew what happened, there was another headline, right? It was crazy. And what I learned through that, I felt like God was growing me through that, was to point to the gospel, not the issue, right? And so something happens when you, in the midst of issues, challenges, life was people called it a dumpster fire. And I'm like, it was crazy. Everybody was on edge, right? But when you point to the gospel, hope comes into the fire. It just does. And sometimes it's hard to see. We become what we behold. And I think even in all that's wrong, we have to pay attention to where we're staring at. So we have to anchor our hearts back in the gospel, not in just the news and current events, even though they're real and they matter. I'm not saying that they don't, right? And so that's why that second point, if I'd have been able to build this out more, this is a discipline for me. It is a practice of gratitude to God, because it reminds me and helps me see his sovereignty. And his sovereignty is bigger than the circumstances that are out of control in this world.
Yeah.
And so there is, just like lament is a biblical process, I believe so is praise, and so is worship. And I believe the thing that we stare at, we eventually direct our life toward for hope. And so Ann Voskamp's work around gratitude it's amazing. It's life-changing for me. And I think it's really about thanking the giver and not about the gift, because the giver can take care of all of the out of controlness of life. And so literally rehearsing the story of God in your life. There's that lyric, we sang it at All Staff, and I was just so profoundly impacted by it. It talks about the altars in the wilderness, and it's talking about the people of Israel coming toward the promised land, and God at times told them to pile up some stones. So when you see this, you'll remember me. So they were wandering in wilderness, and then they made it through, but then they started to wander again. But there are memories. Don't forget who God is.
Yeah.
He's bigger than it all. And so I think we all need piles of stones in our life to remind us of who God is and how sovereign he is. And we may not know the answer to what's out of control, but we know the one who ultimately is in control. And our hearts need reminded of that.
Yeah.
And so I think having things in our life that serve as altars in the wilderness matter.
Yeah, so that was...
I don't even know if that's a full way around
I think
to
so.
make sense.
Yeah.
And community needs to help us with that. Because sometimes when my life is a mess or spinning out of control, or I don't know which way is up and down, I need people to say, hey, did you notice how this happened? God's taking care of you. I need people around me to breathe the story of God like over me so I can start to recognize it. So we're not in this alone. It's not like, hey, get by yourself, make a list. Yeah, do that. But also walk with other people so they can point out God in your story and help you see, yep, he's sovereign.
Yeah. Yeah. So twofold question kind of out of that. I think that's exactly what you're talking about, what Joseph did with naming his sons, right? So his sons
were reminders of him constantly. Yeah.
Just that God has allowed me to forget my hardship and God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So the two questions for this. One, I'm curious, what in your own personal life, what are some like tangible ways that you have maybe built a stone to remind you of God's faithfulness?
Yeah.
And then kind of part two to that, I think I've found in my own life, the older I get and the longer I walk with the Lord, in a sense, this is like sanctifying work and that I think the Lord is doing in my life. It's not like the world gets easier by any means, but trusting him gets easier because I have more and more,
you got a backstory.
Ebenezer. I have more reminders.
There you go. Yeah.
His faithfulness that I can point to. So when something feels really out of control, I can be like, and it felt out of control here. And this is how he met it. Maybe in a way I could have never expected.
Yeah.
So one, I want to know, like, what are some tangible reminders of God's faithfulness in your life? And two, what advice would you give to someone, though, who is younger, either, biologically younger or just younger in their faith journey with the Lord?
That's good.
And kind of getting started on trying to like surrender and trust the Lord.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is I have a lot of those stones, right? One that I'll point to that's so recent to us is for the last 2 years, our daughter Mila has done school at home online. She went through a period of battling anxiety. I shared that with our church staff, with our elders, that's a prayer need of mine, because it affects the whole house, right? She also has dyslexia. And so educationally, learning in a way that not everyone in the classroom learns. Elementary school was hard.
Yeah.
Homework, hard. Just a challenge in so many. And so we prayed, and Brooke really sensed it from the Lord. I was resistant to it, that a digital option for her was best. So she stepped out of the public school. For the last 2 years, she's done a digital curriculum at home. We were able to support her with tutors. Our plan was, okay, for 7th grade, 1 more year. We almost feel like she is where she needs to go. She came to us and said, I'm ready to go back to school. And that to me is a stone. That's like, I was trying to do it without crying. That's a marker in my life that God has been faithful to heal and to, like, he's healing her. Yeah. She has a stone too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she's going to go back to an in-person option. She said, here's what she said to us. She goes, I think I'm ready. Will you guys at least just pray about this? Like, who's the parent, right?
Yeah.
Who's the pastor in that setting? So I look at,
like, what a work.
It's an amazing work of God.
God has done in her life.
And it reminds me, he's sovereign, because it was dark. 2 years ago, it was dark.
Yeah.
It was like hopeless. It was scary. And then I was good at the what if games. I'm thinking about when she's 25 and when she's not 25. And then God reminds me that he's carrying us through it. So yeah, that's a personal stone. And I'll go back to that. You asked about whatever version of younger in the faith, younger age-wise. We need help. Like, I could probably help you if you were to just unpack your story. I would say, like, oh man, that was God. Do you see him carrying you? We need other voices in our life to help us see what we're blind to.
Yeah.
Or help us see what we are a little bit entitled to. We feel like, well, I deserve that. We don't deserve anything. It was God providing it for us. That's what parents do for their kids. So my 20-year-old son, as he's trying to figure out all this kind of stuff, here's an example of this, right? He got an amazing internship, and it's 3 days a week. And it started out 6 hours a day. He has other friends who are rising seniors who have full internships, and he just felt like, why didn't I get what they got? And we were like, well, maybe God's providing because this is what you need. And so first week he comes home and he's like, I'm really glad I don't work 5 days.
Yeah.
Work is an adjustment.
Yeah.
It is an adjustment.
It's a huge adjustment.
I remember the first time I went to a full-time job and I'm I'm exhausted. I sat in a chair all day long, exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, that's the Lord providing for you and giving you what you need in a caring way. Mm-hmm. And then guess what? He's doing great. Second weekend, they came to him. They're like, hey, we'd love for you to be here 8 hours every day. Would you be willing to be a little bit more? He's doing really good work. And he was like, yeah. I was like, how about that? God's giving you like a partial week to ease into this. And then he increased it after 2 weeks as you adjusted to this. We need people in our life to point out the goodness of God.
Yeah.
Because it's there.
Yeah.
It's
and
present.
You can miss it.
You can miss it. Mm-hmm. And so here's what I would say to someone who's younger. Share your story. Don't be afraid to share the things you're worried about. Don't be afraid to share the things that you didn't get right. I had a writing professor in college. He told me, when you write about a character, write them warts and all. Our scars, our struggles are places that reflect the glory of God. Mm-hmm. And so as you're getting someone to mentor you or speak into your life, don't give the sanitized version. If you're frustrated, that's what I love about my son. He expressed to me, hey, this frustrates me. I'm feeling a little bit upset about this. And he knew it sounded ungrateful, but that's what he was feeling.
Yeah.
That allows people to help us see what we don't see. So don't edit your story.
Yeah.
Share it in a trusted few.
Yeah, that's great. We'll want time for one last question, I think. Time flies. We're having fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I also love how you went to Jesus in the garden. And I had never really thought about the fact that he asks for God's will to be done 2 times, which feels so intentional to me that the author would include that even in the scripture. And you see such a model, I think, for surrender. He's really honest about his grief and his fear and concern and
agonizing.
Yeah.
As he's described as. Yeah.
Yeah. And so surrender isn't necessarily like this, like thing that we're supposed to just like easily do. You see Jesus really wrestling through it
through
and having to do it multiple times, right? But I think sometimes we have like a misconception about this. Either like I should just joyfully do it, it should be easy, or maybe even it's like a bargaining chip, like, well, if I surrender this, then God, you'll give me this, and kind of like a tool we can use in this like great cosmic game or something, you know, to
part
like
of the formula.
Yeah, to have a comfortable life.
Yeah.
And we see Jesus
the blessed life.
Yes. Yeah. Hashtag.
Yeah.
And you see that Jesus surrenders to the Lord, and also it ends in what looks like death for 3 days, right? Or it is death for 3 days.
It ends in darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how, as believers, do we grapple with that surrender doesn't mean necessarily a comfortable lifestyle?
Yeah. I think we just have to step in and trust. We have to listen to other people who have stories, who can testify, because that reveals Jesus to us. I think we look to the scriptures for hope, because there's such beauty there. Again, that's always been there. I just now saw it, and I needed it. I needed to see it right now. He surrendered a second time. I almost laughed when I was like,
oh yeah. Yes,
unbelievable.
I've never paid attention to that either.
That brought so much calm to my heart. I felt so freed up. If he had to do it 2 times, and he's Jesus, I'm going to need to do it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And then it's like the story of God in your life. And when I say, hey, keep tuned in to the sermons at Northway, this is not self-promotion, I promise you. But like week to week to week, God is speaking. He's weaving something. There's a thread there. Catherine Wolfe said, suffering and navigating through it isn't like a single point in life. Pastor Kent said, I always call him Pastor Kent, Chaplain Kent.
Still pastor.
Pastor Kent, PK. He talked about the natural versus the supernatural. And then here I am in that moment talking about surrender. Surrender is a battle between the natural and the supernatural. It's not a fixed point in life. Jesus did it twice. We're going to walk in surrender. It's like this thing God is saying to our church in a building fashion. And so staying tuned in to the conversation. That again, that is not like, I'm not looking for more clicks or more downloads. I go to church here and I sit in church like, God, you're saying something. You've been saying something. There's a narrative he's weaving together and trying to get our attention around. So continuing to search the scriptures, continuing to listen to other people in their stories, it helps us know and walk in surrender. Again, it's a lifestyle and it's a heart posture, and beautiful things are birthed in dark places. Catherine Wolfe said that also. Yeah. Right? Like
a seed in the ground, unless
it dies.
A baby in the womb, and a life in the tomb or something.
Yeah,
like
she
that.
said all 3 of those.
Yeah.
I have it written down on my phone. Yeah. But there is scripture that talks about a seed doesn't grow up and produce fruit unless it first dies. Yeah. Like a literally seed in the whole germination, is that the right word? Process actually like dies, and then new life comes out of it. And so, yeah, it's a journey. It's a process. It's growing in grace, understanding that the journey is the destination. It's not the destination.
And I think it feels very hard to remember this in the midst of a really significant trial, but that there is more to life than comfort as well, or that the Lord is like writing a bigger, beautiful story. And even though Jesus died and it looked very dark for 3 days, it was telling obviously the story of our salvation, right? And
there was joy set before him in that. Yeah. And I believe there's joy set before us in our dark. I'm walking through challenging news that a friend is receiving. And even in that, he is fighting to surrender and see the goodness of God, even while he's in the land of the living right now. Because I believe it's there, but it's not all comfort. It's not all perfection. There is a sin curse on our world. Yeah. And it's the already but not yet existence that it's just a wrestle. But here's the thing, none of us walk that alone. We walk it together. And I feel like this Behind and Beyond is brought to you by Community. We're not meant to walk that alone.
Yeah.
And we need to be reminded. And sometimes I had a hard situation come up. I know we're over time. They'll click off if they want to learn about food somewhere else, right?
How to We're not fulfilling our foodie duties.
Deconstruction, foodie duties. That kind of rhyme. I just had a hard moment in my week, and I'm pretty open book, right? I had a hard situation, and I just shared it with a friend, and it had to do with our church, right? And he's a friend who will bear my burdens with me. Like, we need people like that. It's community. And it just sharing that with him, his response, his follow-up to me was so life-giving. It was so incredibly uplifting. The situation's not resolved. There's not comfort there, but I'm not alone in it. And so that whole bearing one another's burdens and the community piece that the one another's of the New Testament calls us to, it brings some of that joy in the midst of darkness.
What in that response was helpful to you specifically? Like, what did they do to help?
Just telling me you're not alone. Mm-hmm. Just saying I'm with you. And he means it.
Yeah.
That just a brother, so I let it out and I told him the specifics. And now he's shouldering it with me.
Yeah.
And so it got lighter for me. He didn't give me advice. Here's what you do. 1, 2, then 3. Bada bing, bada boom. You're good. There's no 1, 2, 3 to this kind of a situation, right? But that's what made it lighter for me. It's heavy when we carry it alone.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to.
Yeah. Well, great, Dave. It's great to have you back on
Good
the
to be back.
podcast.
Yeah.
We've missed you.
I got a lot of words. I'm sorry. They were singing
great.
Frozen, Let It Go. Did you hear that?
I could hear it.
I wish you could hear what's actually going on here. Hey, shout out to Carlo. He just smiles over there. He's he's number 43 in your soccer program. He's number 1 in your heart, though. Carlo is the best. So Jordan's not here right now. He's the best too. So we have an amazing team here. So yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
welcome
Allison.
back. Great to talk to you as always.
See ya.
Bye.